Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Perustopia live show. Today, we're going to be discussing The Disappearances by Emily Bain Murphy. And right now, neither of us have the book with us because we are both currently in the process of moving.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get a photo up on the screen right now.
The cover is pretty great, so we definitely still want to show you the cover.
Okay, there's a cover. Very nice.
Nice! I didn't even know that was a thing we could do. That's so awesome. There's the
That's
cover.
like the first thing I learned a part of this live show thing is like how to share photos. I know, isn't it really neat? So that's Disappearances has a beautiful cover, and I think it definitely resonates with the book. Like the book was so aesthetically pleasing and just wonderful. And right now,
do you want to bit of a creepy element as well, and I feel like that matches.
Yes.
So The Disappearances was our book this month, and it was a great historical fiction novel with some elements of fantasy. It follows our main character who at the beginning of the story, her mother has unfortunately passed away and her father was just conscripted into World War II. So because of this, her and her younger brother have to go to her mother's hometown and stay with her childhood best friend. When they get to the town, she quickly realizes that something just seems off. And she doesn't know why. Everyone seems to be hiding something. People are very secretive. And then she discovers that's because they are kind of cursed. There's something occurring to the town every 7 years called the Disappearances, where something disappears, like the name implies. So far, reflections are gone, smells are gone, and they essentially just don't know what's going to go next. And, oh, dogs. and essentially they're just nervous that each disappearance is going to just increase in severity every time it occurs. The magical element of this book is really cool because obviously, because things disappear, some people in town work to try to create magical elements or just the origin of an element to temporarily relieve the disappearance itself. So it follows our main character as she moves there, uncovers these secrets, and strives to solve the mystery. I would say it has a really awesome small town and creepy element all the way through. I really enjoyed this book. What did you think, Sasha?
Yeah, so when I first found out about The Disappearances, I'm actually friends with the author, Emily Bain Murphy, and she is like the sweetest person ever. And so when she ever described her book, I always wanted to read it, but I didn't want to ask for the art because I was like, I want to get it in bookstores. And then when we made our Perustopia book club, I was so excited because I was like, yay, get to pimp out a friend, but also get to read the book. And, all opinions are our own, and we're sharing them with you guys. And we're so excited to be working with HMH Books on this book for the book club. And we actually have a very special giveaway for you guys right now that's going on the HMH Instagram page. So go head over there. We'll be putting, I'll be putting up a link in my stories on Instagram right after this live show, just so you can go click on that link and go and enter to win a book of The Disappearances. So
yeah, and we'll also leave it in the description. You basically all you have to do is go to a certain photo on their Instagram, follow them, and just comment you're part of the Perustopia Book Club, and then you're entered to win. It's super, super simple. And the link to the photo will also leave in the description here.
Yes, exactly. So, I'll start off with some of my opinions on this book because I truly love this novel because we've read a lot of books in the book club recently that was really high impact, very high energy, very action-based novels. And this one was very much intellectual novel, but don't make that seem like it's boring. It's not. It actually makes you think. It makes you, it's a creepy sense of, okay, what's going on? I feel like I'm immersed in this novel so well because Emily Bain Murphy really makes you think, really makes you feel like you're immersed in this world. And, The Disappearances, it's creepy in its own right. When something disappears, you don't know where it's gone. And knowing that this 15-year-old girl, she's 15, right?
Yeah, she's 15, 16.
Yeah, 16. And her brother, they're going on this quest to go figure out what it is. It's such a unique storyline. There's slight romance in it with Will, and I really just love this story because it was very, just thought-provoking. It touched my heart and also made me just see books in a new light because not every book has to have lots of bang shoot 'em ups. It has to have a lot of thought put into it, and definitely that was in The Disappearances.
I also really, really enjoyed this book. It took me by surprise in a few ways because it combined two things that I normally didn't think I wanted together, but when it happened, I was such a fan. So obviously we have this large overhanging mystery of the disappearances itself. And because of the fact that it's a mystery and there's some sort of side chapters that try to explain this past, it's creepy. There's a creepiness element. But there's also this small town feel, them settling into this small town, trying to make a life for themselves. But even in that, there's still this overhanging anxiety of the disappearances of what's going to be gone next. People are nervous about their future. So there's always this sense of urgency in the town. But even still, the relationships that all the characters cultivate are so sweet. I love that they moved to this new home and why can't I remember their names? But the two that her mother's best friend growing up.
Matilda, was it Matilda? Something with the M, right?
Yeah, they were just like the sweetest couple, and like the friends she made at school, I just really liked. And the romance I thought was also really realistic. Yes. But so it was kind of like a historical contemporary novel, but it had this really interesting fantastical element interwoven into it that just elevated the narrative to a place that I just thought it was so unique. And I just felt like the mystery was so well done. At no point did I feel like I knew how or why it happened. And I also kind of mentioned just previously, there was these intermittent chapters of like journal entries of this character that we didn't really know who he was or how he was involved in the story, and it just made everything so creepy because they would be like at like a sporting tournament, and then we have this creepy chapter of this guy who like killed people, and you'd be like, what is going on, and like how are those gonna come together? And it just so effective.
You know, we read a book a few months ago. What was it called? It was that mystery with the baby. It had baby in the title.
Oh, baby doll.
Baby doll. And, you know, it kind of was in that sense where we had this chapter of, you know, the
perspective, like,
and it's a creepy mindset. And, you know, I feel like when the books have those, it actually, it makes you think 20 times harder because you need to figure out who this person is. But, like, you know, the author's not going to give it to you right away. So it's kind of like this, like, inner torment because you want to know. And, you know, one thing I found really phenomenal about this book was the fantastical realism in it and how, you know, like you said, it was interwoven really nicely into the historical fiction of it, along with just, like, you know, had a contemporary feel. And I really, really love that. And, you know, usually when we see World War II books, we see, like, you know, the war front, or it's very impactful in the community. But this community, I personally did not think the World War II really impacted it to an extreme amount, and that made that mystery more clear for us to, like, you know, delve into, because there wasn't all these other boring things trying to get our attention. It was a mystery, and it was the characters, and I think it was really character-based and driven, this novel, and I really love that aspect of it.
I also liked how a lot of the mystery, because this is a spoiler live show, I really enjoyed how a lot of the mystery of the disappearance were rooted in literature. I thought that was really cool. So it was almost like each disappearance was a riddle that they had to like work through and how to kind of find the magical component so that they can kind of alleviate it for a short amount of time. So the professor, the doctor, and one of her school friends would like lock themselves up and read literature to try to find, you know, is it a sparrow's feather ground up that will, you know, return music or whatever it was. Oh my gosh, it was heartbreaking because I realized right before it happened, because it was on the back that music disappeared, but like, you know, when they're at the festival and everyone had that hope, like, well, maybe nothing's gonna disappear this time. And her friend went up to start playing the violin. I was like, or the cello or the violin, and I was like, oh no. I was like, how sad to not have any then. Like, what else is there to do? Like,
I know, exactly. Like, when so many things are being taken away, like, you think like the reflection being taken away, you're like, oh, that really sucks. But once you take away the musical component of, you know, everyday life, it's just like,
and that's what it really hit you, because like when you first start the book, I feel like you're like, okay, like I can live without a reflection. Like, that's not horrible. Sense of smell, that sucks. But ultimately, like, I still have my taste buds. But then when they start taking away, and it's like so when they start to take away music, I'm like, how long is this going to go on? And at what point is it like, eventually they're just not going to have anything, you know? And I was like, that is so sad. Like, not music, colors could be gone next. Like, anything could be love. And then when they couldn't hear the voices of the people that they loved, I was like, that is so sad.
And it's so eerie. It's sad. Like, when I was reading it, I just, you know, when you're, for example, I was watching The Handmaid's Tale, the first episode the other day, and it's kind of like when you see these things that are going wrong, you just want to fix it, you want to change it, and you can't because it's not your story to tell. Yeah, it's like, it's really hard because you're kind of in a box and you can't fix it, and that's the hardest thing. You can't just reach in there and like scream at them like, this is what's wrong, let me tell you. It's like you're being withheld from that, and you're having to like really just holding your emotions from it because you're the reader. You can't do anything about it. And I felt that feeling when reading this book, and and then again when I was watching Handmaid's Tale, where there's nothing that you could do, and you feel so powerless, and you just want to shake the characters, but you can't get your hands on them.
I wanted to quickly say that's like kind of separate to the mystery. Again, I mentioned how I really enjoy the relationships of this book a lot. First off, between the main character and her brother, I thought that was a really sweet relationship. Obviously, there's a lot of emotions that they've gone through as a family. Their father's away at war, their mother just passed away, and they're both grieving and dealing with that differently, still trying to maintain close. Like, her sister kind of resents her brother and vice versa, but they love each other, and seeing that relationship explored through this novel, I also really enjoyed.
Yeah. You know, you don't really see very many familial relationships in novels that often, especially in young adult fiction.
Sister and brother. I feel like you see that a lot in middle grade.
Yes.
Not
yes,
very often in YA.
Exactly. And so having that, like, you know, I talk a lot about this on my channel just because, like, I think it's really important. It's the way that families connect with each other in books. I feel like it can be very powerful, but sometimes it's seen as an inconvenience when a family is so strong because
that's
you're like,
another layered. Like, but like the fact that she included it, I felt like really added dimension to all the characters present in the book itself. Also, I really liked the romance. I thought it was like slow burning, but I also liked it because it was like, oftentimes, I don't know if it's them getting older or what, but when I see like really intense high school relationships, I'm like, oh, that irks me. Because they're so young. But it's in the 1940s, and like people got married all the time at like 17. So I was like, that's normal. Like I could buy into that really fast.
I know. Yeah, and you also have to think, like, you know, it's the 1940s, but also, like, the way of, you have to be proper, there's a different set of rules, and, like, you know, it was a very nice slow burn, but, like, it didn't bother me, and I get it, like, when you said, like, how we're getting older, and it seems like, you know, when there's really intense high school, like, relationships, you're like, that's not realistic. I was in high school once, and I never, like, experienced that with any of my boyfriends, but, like, you know, you see, you have to kind of change your opinions with the times in the book. And you have to see, like, the circumstances and the way it works. And I felt like this one was a really good representation of it. And I know that if I was 16 reading it, I would just be like, ah!
Well, even still, like, I thought they were really, really cute. And I also just liked how it developed over time. And I just thought it was really sweet. I also just really liked the school element, too. Like, I like that there was an element of schooling in this novel because it, again, kind of added this contemporary element because it really just reinforced that all these people are trying to live a normal life. Amongst the mystery. Like, the mystery is a huge part of their life, but they're still living. So, like, we're going to show you them living as well. So I thought the school element was cool. And also the races that they did, I thought was so interesting.
Yes. All those things, like, you know, whenever I read a book, and it's mainly one thing that, with school, when a character's not in school and they're of the age of schooling and there's not a good reason why they're taken out of school, I'm like, where are their parents? Like, I mean, like, why are they sent to school? What's going on? And so it adds to the layers of the character because you're like, okay, they're not just this, like, you know, special snowflake that they're always going to be, like, you know, perfect and they get to go out of school and nobody's going to question it. No, they're in school. It's like kind of like a real human being. There's no, like, false expectations. It's just how it is. And I loved how she added that in there without it taking away from the story because also this book wasn't like an extremely long novel.
So it was good.
The pacing was great, the writing was great, the storyline was amazing, and the twists and turns in this novel really, really shocked me. And, you know, I think that you and me both, like, we tend to, like, pick apart some of the plot twists in novels before we get to that, just because, you know, when you read a lot of books, that tends to be, like, what your mind goes to. Like, okay, let me figure out this plot twist. Let me not just, like, you know, go and experience it as I read it. Let me figure it out now. And so with this one, you know, I was really happy that it took me a little bit longer to figure out, like, you know, plot twists and turns because then it was just easier for me to enjoy the novel.
I know. And with that too, like, just again going back to this kind of like small town feel, like I loved the festival. I love that they had little like small town. It made me think of like Gilmore Girls, kind of like in a historical setting, but like with paranormal elements. Like the fact that they had small town rivalries with other small towns. Like, you have like competitions against them. Like I was really into it. I felt like I was a member of the town. I was like cheering for my people. I just felt like it had some really sweet, like actual sweet, well-written, like nice small town moments that really made the paranormal or the frightening or the mysterious elements all that more jarring because you just don't want it to get disrupted, you know? And I just felt like that's why it was so successful because like she was able to make a really solid foundation of a town and characters that you loved and cared about. So when things started happening to them, you really felt it and you really wanted them to save or prevent it from happening.
Exactly. And, you know, it's just like, you know, this book was just really refreshing to me. I loved it. I love the storyline, and you know, I was nervous going into it because I didn't know the author and I didn't want to like, you know, dislike the work, but I knew that like, you know, I have to be honest with it. And I'm really glad that it came out with me really enjoying it because I just am so happy about that.
And it seems like we're not the only ones. If you go on Goodreads, it has like a really high rating, like as it deserves. That always is like like I always like sometimes when you read a book, you're like, I loved it, and then you go on Goodreads, you're like, there's no one else.
Like, I know. I encounter that a lot. Like, I love certain books that I read recently. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this book. And then I look on Goodreads. I'm like, nope, it's hatred. But then I go on Amazon. Amazon's actually where I go more often now to see, like, the ratings because they're, like, verified purchases. So I go on there, and I'm like, okay, this is legit now. And I love, like, seeing when people love the same book that I do because then it's like, oh, yeah, I can talk about it with people. But, like, you know, there's always people to talk about books with. You just have to, like, you know, go on the Twitterverse maybe.
So did we want to answer any questions?
Oh yes, my question would be, I have some questions that I want to ask, you know, us as, you know, just us. And one of them I was thinking about was, what would really, really affect you as a person if something disappeared in your life? What would really just be totally jarring and you couldn't go forward with your life if something of this sort disappeared?
I mean, I don't know if like I wouldn't be able to go on because I feel like, you know, anyone can hopefully overcome anything that is like thrown out their way. Because like my first instinct, just because I'm so reliant on it, but I mean, there's so many people in the world that don't have this and are thriving in their lives, it would just be really jarring to me at first. And I'd like to think that I could be as strong as people who don't have sight and like I'm able to adapt to that. But like losing sight, I think would be really hard. Because I love to like sit and read a book and I, you know, all those things. But again, I think with a lot of hard work and determination, people overcome that every day. So I don't want to say like I couldn't go on. Also losing like taste. If food just loses its taste, like food doesn't taste like anything, I'd probably be like super thin, but like it would suck.
Yeah, I know.
So much. It'd be such a bummer.
I know, that would really suck. Like I was thinking about this question because I'm like, yeah, you're right. You can go on because so many people are faced with things that they never had because they never could disappear. Like, you know, with like, you know, sight or, you know, mobility or, you know, hearing and all that stuff. But like something that like of a more like superficial thing that I could go on with, but, you know, I like would be difficult would just be like, you know, technology. If like technology or like the Wi-Fi disappeared, like yes.
No more Wi-Fi.
Like the thing that would suck about that is that like, you know, my whole entire career technically is based off of technology and you know, having internet connection.
Like oxygen disappeared. That would really suck.
I know. Oh my gosh. Like, but one thing that I would like really be like, what if words disappeared? Like words on a page.
Or like the ability to, I mean, I'd like, again though, like the ability to speak. Luckily, I mean, people can write. I mean, I guess if the whole concept of language disappeared, like there was no way to like construct any type of language, like written through movements, through the spoken word or music. There's so many ways to communicate. Like if that whole concept was gone, that would suck. But if it's just a spoken language, like there's sign language, there's so many like ways to adapt. It makes me think of that book Soundless, remember? Because
yes. Yeah.
Because like, everyone was deaf, so they all communicated either visually or visually with their hands, visually with writing. So,
but like the plot twist of that book was that people were starting to go blind as well.
Oh yeah, and so it's like, what do you do?
What do you do? And like, you know, wasn't Helen Keller blind and deaf?
Yes.
Yeah, so like, you know, it is something that you can overcome. It's something that is really difficult, but you can overcome it by like,
she learned a sign language by feel, by touch.
Yeah, and so it's just like, you know, everything that you have, you can overcome it. It's just like, you know, it may be jarring at first, but like, you know, there's ways to kind of like fix it. And as long as you're alive, that should be something that you should like be like, yeah, still good.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions? We forgot to ask the questions early on in the live show. I could check my Twitter, but if not, we could just go into what book we're going to be reading next month, which Regan and I are super excited about.
Yeah. I was like, Sasha, can we read this book? Sasha.
I know, you're like, please. And I'm like, yeah, I want to read it too. Okay.
I know. She was like, yeah, I already wanted to read that.
No, I wanted to read it because it seems so good. So I have one question from somebody called Reader's Warehouse and says, what books would you compare The Disappearances to that you have read? It's so unique. It's hard to compare.
I guess like in terms of the time period that gives me, I mean, okay, so they're not similar in plot at all, but in terms of like feelings, I would say there was this there's a Sister's Witch book that I can't think of the name of. Do you have one?
I think honestly something that's similar, but not similar in the sense of like, you know, losing something. I would actually recommend Soundless, just in the sense that, you know, if you want to read a book about somebody losing stuff and having that desperation of figuring out how to like fix it, you know, that would be a good one to read. But yeah,
I have one. So the Khalil Witch Chronicles kind of give me like similar feels only because it's like a historical small town with magical elements, because they're a family of 3 sisters that have magical powers that they have to hide, and they're like live in Salem. But it's like after the initial, it's like not set during the Salem witch trials. It's like after that, but it's called the Khalil Witch Chronicles. It's like the name of the series. It gives me like similar feels in the way that like they have a similar like small town setting. The mystery and the plot are very different, but if you're looking for something like a similar feel, I would recommend that for sure.
How do you spell the Khalil?
The first one's called Born Wicked.
Oh, Born Wicked. Okay. I'm like, I want to look. Wait, is it a recent book?
No, it came out a few years ago. I've read it though, the whole thing. I liked it.
I'm checking this out because I'm like, I am curious. Oh, I'm just gonna definitely be checking this out. I get all my recommendations from Reagan pretty much. Like one of my favorite books I got like recommended by Reagan, and I'm like, thank you, Reagan. So Reagan, do you have the book with you?
I do. Let me go put its dust jacket on. I just realized it's naked.
Yes, it's a beautiful cover, so it needs to be shown. And it recently hit the New York Times list, so congratulations to the author for
yeah, good job.
Yes, and that's really exciting. So I'm really excited to read this book because of that.
Okay, so the book we are reading is The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. I'm super pumped about this. I've already read the first 60 pages and I'm already really enjoying it. This is a YA urban fantasy story that follows our main character, Eliza Esta, who is a trained thief. Essentially, and now that I've read the first 60 pages, I definitely have a better grip on the world than I did when I jumped in. But essentially, this is a world set in New York City where magic is kind of on the outskirts. It has been hunted down over the years basically to kill magicians that have any type of magical ability. And these magicians also cannot escape New York. So there's like a barrier preventing them from escaping set up by something called the Order, which is who hunts down these magicians. Esta, our main character, is a part of a group that's like trying to, you know, take down the Order, and she steals things essentially. And she's sent on a mission. I should go back. Her ability, she's basically able to travel through time. She can like slow down time. She can go back in time. So basically she goes into the past to steal a lot of these artifacts. And essentially she goes into the past and the 1900s to try to steal this book. That is this book that can basically like save the world and save the magicians, so it's really good. So she's going back in time. So this has elements of time travel, which I did not know when I first picked it out too. So it has like historical and modern day settings with magic and mystery. And there's like, it's so good so far. I'm really, really enjoying it. So
I love that. I'm so excited about it. So guys, definitely come and join us for the book club book of the month for August. I can't believe it's August already. I feel like someone's gonna feel like that.
We're both moving like next week.
I know. It's so funny. Reagan and I were talking about like how last year I moved to her hometown technically, and then she's technically moving to my hometown now, and then we're both moving to new places like
at the same time. Like we're both moving across the country at the same time.
Yeah, it's so funny because I'm moving to Massachusetts, she's moving to Chicago, and then like and we're doing it in like 2 days of each other. So like that's so funny. Oh my gosh.
We really planned everything well together, Sasha.
I know. We're just like we have like this connection where we're just like we need to move at the same times. Well guys, thank you so much for joining our live show. Make sure you go enter that giveaway on HMH.
Oh yeah. We'll be sure to leave that link down below. Free book, so don't let that go away.
It's always good. It's always good. So thank you guys so much for watching, and come and join us next month for the Last Magician live show. Bye, guys.